Dimitri Liljegren or Mario Ferraro. Miker's gonna have to make a choice.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. If you want to be an everyday, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be looking at Dimitri Liljegren and Mario Ferraro, both players in very similar situations. Both players who have been rumored in trade circulations, and both players who probably want to get a new contract. So we're going to be looking at what Mike Grier should do, as the Sharks will probably have to make a decision on both these players and their long-term future in San Jose. So we're going to be looking at kind of why the Sharks need to make a decision, the case for each player, and then what potential extensions would look like. And I'm going to give my 2 cents what I think Mike Grier should do. So before we get to all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right. 2 players, defenseman Dimitri Liljegren, Mario Ferraro, both in similar situations here, as both players are in the last year of their deals, both expected to be scheduled to be unrestricted free agents next off season. Both players the same age at 26. This will be their age 27 season. And both players with question marks about their future in San Jose. Both Ferraro and Liljegren have been tied to potential trade rumors this offseason as Mike Grier continues to try to revamp this defense. And we saw the moves that they made this offseason with additions like Dimitri Orlov, John Klingberg, Nick Leddy, and then, of course, the Sam Dickinson question of it all. You're starting to run out of space on the blue line. And both Ferraro and Liljegren, again, players who have been circulated as potential trade targets for other teams, are kind of the 2 players that would potentially make the most sense if you're Mike Grier to move on from. So let's start with, we're going to kind of dig into each player a little bit more here in segment 2 and stuff, but let's start with the why of it, right? And kind of what the Sharks are dealing with right now. So as of right now here, the Sharks defenseman under contract, you have Dimitri Orlov, who signed to a 2-year deal this offseason. Nick Leddy signed to a 1-year deal. John Klingberg signed to a 1-year deal. Ferraro is going to enter in the last year of his deal at $3.25 million. Dimitri Liljegren entered in the last year of his deal at $3 million AAV. Yeah, Vinny Desharnais, Shakir Mukhamadullin, and Jack Thompson all also signed for this season. Mukhamadullin and Thompson are both RFAs after this year. We kind of figure Mukhamadullin hopefully takes a big step and earns himself a nice long-term contract. And then, of course, you have Sam Dickinson, the 19-year-old rookie who's expected to play NHL games at some point this year. So that leaves you right there with 9 defensemen at the moment, right? Last time I checked, he usually plays 6. So you have 9 defensemen, 3 of which are brand new guys, right? You have Dickinson, who, again, I think the expectation is he at least starts the season in San Jose. And I think you'd have to have a pretty horrible training camp, which is very possible. But I think it's safe to say Dickinson will be on the opening night roster. The question just is, does he play 9 games and goes back to the OHL? Or do the Sharks make him, kind of make it work with him? And I tend to lean in they make it work with him this season, and he just kind of goes through, his rookie ups and downs. But still, right, you look at all those guys, 3 new guys this year between Leddy. You have, again, Leddy, Orlov, and Klingberg, all guys who are going to be on the opening night roster, guys who Mike Grier went out of his way to either sign or acquire via waivers in Letty's case. You have Mukama Doolan, who you feel like is, going to be stepping into a much bigger role this season. Jack Thompson, who, maybe he's in the AHL, maybe he's not. And Vinny Desharnais, who's kind of a seventh defenseman type of player, where if you need him to play some games, it's not the end of the world. But if you don't, you don't. So that kind of leaves these two guys here in Liljegren and Ferraro, both who are, again, entering the last year of their contracts, both expected to be or scheduled to be UFAs next year, and both, again, who have been potential trade targets. We know Ferraro recently just said he would be open to a new to a change of scenery. Didn't say he asked for a trade, but that he would be open for a change of scenery. And Liljegren, who's kind of always been, I know the Sharks, I did trade for him last season, where they gave up a third round pick, and then also sent Matt Benning back in exchange for him, but still has been a guy who the Sharks did give up something recently valuable, in a third round 2026 a third round 2025 third round pick, and then they got and Matt Benning. So the Sharks, they have, I'd say, invested in Timothy Liljegren, but hasn't put in the sweat equity that, of course, that Mario Ferraro has. And both these players are going to be players who I think are valuable around the NHL for what they provide. And that's probably a question of what their value brings and what they're kind of seen to do. And we know Mike Grier isn't just going to give away players. And I do believe both these players would be worthy of other teams looking for him. A guy like Ferraro, what he brings in the leadership and in the locker room, as well as his style of play of, kind of a hustle, block shots, does all those type of things that teams definitely look for, come playoff time. And I think Ferraro is a perfectly fine 4, 5, 6 for you. On your team, you're probably feeling really good, while the Sharks have him as a, recently has been a 1, 2, 3 type of defenseman, where he's usually in the top half, and has definitely been asked to do way too much for the Sharks in his time here in San Jose. And I do think there are teams that will 100% look for that. What is it worth? That's a great question. Again, I second, third, who knows type of pick. Who knows, right? As for the case of Liljegren, right? He is a player who's had some issues, getting on the ice for a very good, right, Montreal team, right? That was kind of one of the big reasons why Montreal moved him last year, is they just couldn't get him on the ice, right? They just had 6 guys who they thought were better than him. And I thought Liljegren played relatively well in his time in San Jose last year, and is a guy who maybe with an improved defense this year, maybe we start to kind of see a little bit more from Liljegren. Or there's also the other, side of the coin, where maybe Liljegren's always just kind of that 6th, 7th type of defenseman for you. But I still believe teams would rather have a guy like Liljegren who can, kind of maybe be that 6th or 7th defenseman, maybe be a little bit of a backup guy, where if one of your top 4 guys goes down for a little bit, he can kind of come in and play for you, and kind of hold down the fort, with puck moving responsibility, compared to, maybe some of their other guys on their rosters. So Liljegren kind of feels more like a guy you don't want in your top 4. You're not going into the season feeling like you need Liljegren in your top 4, but if he needs to play top 4 minutes, given, asking him to kind of play that puck moving defenseman style role, he can do it for you, but it's probably not what you want to kind of go into the season planning for. So both these guys should have value around the NHL. what should the Sharks do here? So we're going to dive deeper into each player, kind of look at what they excel at, what they do, what they struggle with, and kind of make the case for each player. And then we'll talk about what extensions would possibly look like for both of them. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can be. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. Track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Great thing about it is maybe if you and your partner, you guys have separate accounts, but then also are working towards a shared goal, maybe, right? Trying to buy a house, trying to buy a car, or maybe just planning your next adventure. With Monarch Money, they make it easy to, again, keep control of your personal accounts, but also work together towards a shared goal. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, before we continue, of course, I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Again, proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day, or at least 3 days a week right now. Make sure you guys are following along. We still got plenty of great stuff coming up this week. We got an interview coming up that was planned, should be recorded probably on Monday, so we'll have that later on this week. We'll probably also talk some more prospect stuff as well, so make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts, and of course you can watch on YouTube as well. All right, what do each of these players do? What do they provide? So let's start with Mario Ferraro. Ferraro, 6 foot, 209 pounds. He'll be 27 this year. 1 year contract again at $3.25 million. He played 78 games last year, had 5 goals, 12 assists with 79 shots on goal, playing 21-42 a night. Corsi 4. So when he was on the ice, the Sharks took 47.11% of the shot attempts. And when he was on the ice, the Sharks scored 40.77% of the goals at 5-on-5. Liljegren's evolving hockey card was actually very surprising, given kind of Ferraro, his evolving hockey card. Very surprising, kind of given what you expect with Ferraro, but this year playing first pair minutes, 22nd overall rating, 81st percentile offensively, 4th percentile defensively. Not what I envisioned. He's a very good job of kind of creating goals above replacement. You saw him be more aggressive jumping into the play this year. The defense, though, not really kind of what you would expect. Again, right, you kind of expect Ferraro. When you think of Mario Ferraro, you think of more of a stay-at-home defenseman. Ferraro, though, definitely played much more of a two-way game this year. Plays a ton on the PK. We know, like, not getting power play minutes as he shouldn't. But again, a little surprising when I saw this one. Looking at his advanced hockey stat card from JFresh Hockey, they have him as an 18% WAR player over the past 3 years, but this last year it jumped up to nearly 50%. Like, this was easily Ferraro's best season, and the offense really was the kind of key for that, as he really started to drive offense this year, and just didn't get the finishing that you would potentially expect from a player like him. He played tough competition, not the best teammates, but the defense did take a bit of a slide this year as he was asked to try to generate a little bit more offense. You're looking at his player usage chart from Dobber Prospects. Ferraro faced tough competition with not a lot of offensive zone starts, and he did a good job with it. He's considered an average top 4 two-way defenseman. While he would generate a good Corsi for a guy who, again, not given a lot of offensive zone starts and faced a ton of easily faced the toughest competition among Sharks players, especially among the defensemen. Like, he's always out there for the top pair against he's always out there playing the other team's top opponents. So what Ferraro did really well this year was, where a lot of his offense came from, was rebounds created per 60. So Ferraro getting the puck to the net and creating offensive rebounds for other players. The other offense, not too bad. And his passing wasn't too bad as well. When you're looking at his all three zone charts, zone entries, okay-ish. Did a good job with the puck retrievals. A lot of botched and stuff like that, but that's mostly because Ferraro has to do it a bajillion. Ferraro is asked to do a lot in the defensive zone, but usually, for the most part, like solid defensive zone retrievals. Not the greatest, maybe zone entry defense, but not the worst card I think we've seen in terms of all three zones from him. So a guy who I think took a step this year, especially in the offensive zone, on a team that needed a defenseman to make some more offensive zone plays, and probably just got a little bit lucky when it came to the actual production this year. And maybe if he continues to do it again, and the Sharks forwards get a little bit stronger between the growth of Celebrini and Smith and Eklund in year 3, and the addition of Jeff Skinner and a revamped third line, you could see that point production really kind of take a jump. As for Dimitri Liljegren, 6'1", 201 pounds, 26, 1 year, $3 million, right-handed shot. Played 67 games between the Sharks and the Maple Leafs, but only one game with the it was a handful against the Maple Leafs. Similar production, 6 goals, 11 assists, 102 shots on goal while playing 19-16 a night. Corsi for 47.36%. So when he's on the ice, the Sharks took 47% of the shots. Goals for 40.63. So pretty, again, similar numbers to Mario Ferraro in that regard. Looking at his evolving hockey card, playing first pairing minutes, 23 percentile player, so similar to Ferraro, but 33 percentile offense, 45th percentile defensively. So Liljegren, again, you kind of think more of the offensive side from him, but his defense was much better than Ferraro's this year, and the offense maybe not as what you would expect. Doesn't play much on the PK, but got some power play minutes, and again, maybe got a little bit unlucky there as he provided positive expected goals for, but the actual goals above replacement were negative. So again, maybe a little bit unlucky in that department. Looking at his evolving hockey card over the past 3 years, 71 percentile WAR, which last year with Toronto was up to 75 percentile. This year kind of bumped down to the 50th percentile range. But the offense and defense have both been above 50% of the past 3 years. His card is much bluer. Blue tends to be good than Mario Ferraro's. The goals, very nice, 69% goals. Finishing, he gets a little bit luckier there. Faces, average competition, but usually has better teammates. And I think you can definitely point to his time with Toronto for that aspect of it. And then looking at his usage, got more offensive zone starts and way more offensive zone starts than Mario Ferraro, which you would expect, and not as bad when it came to quality of competition. Like it's still pretty high, tough competition, but also ranked in the average top 4 two-way defenseman category via Dauber Hockey. His zone, all 3 zones, so much better in the offensive, like more blue stuff there. Did a really good job with whenever he did do zone entries. His zone entries usually led to quality chances. So something like when he's carries the puck in the zone, usually good things happen from him. Defensive zone, though, like his retrievals are nowhere near as good as like Ferraro's. I think we're a little bit better at actually getting the puck. And then Dimitri Liljegren, the zone entry defense was not great at all, especially compared to Mario Ferraro. So you have 2 players here who they kind of a little bit of a yin and a yang, right? Where Ferraro known more for his defense, did a little bit better job at providing defense in the actual defensive zone or getting the puck out of the zone and kind of the retrievals with it. But like, it doesn't feel like Ferraro, while the numbers say Ferraro drove offense better than Liljegren, that's one where, like, watching the games, yes, Ferraro was much more engaged in the offense, but I think overall in the sample size over the past couple of years, I think Liljegren is still a better offensive defenseman. Liljegren, though, like, definitely is a player who, again, known for his offense, struggles with some of the zone entry defense that I think Ferraro is a little bit better at. And with some of the puck, getting the puck out of the zone, did still struggle in that area, but during the transition was a much better player. And when he had the puck in transition, usually led to good things offensively. So, right, similar, in a lot of ways, but also both these players do things much differently, right? And I think that's going to kind of be a big thing for Mike Greer in kind of whatever decision he makes is, what do I have now? What do I expect to have soon? And do I have something like that on the roster right now? So both these players are right entering the last year of their deals. What would an extension look like for either one of them? And what do I think the Sharks should do? So that's what we're going to get to here in just 1 second. All right. Before we finish up, do of course want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you haven't yet, for your second listen, perfect time to go check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There's no off season. We're bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter the most with local coverage from Locked On that you love. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, so what does an extension look like for both these players, right? Both players entering the last year of their current deals, both scheduled to be UFAs next off season. What would an extension look like? So assuming the Sharks would assign this extension during the season, right? What would an extension potentially look like? So let's start with Mario Ferraro. Ferraro is from Evolving Hockey. He's expected to sign a 6-year deal at $4.829 million. 20% likelihood of that. The next closest kind of likelihood deal would be a 4-year deal at about $4.7 million. So a little bit of a raise, as you would expect, and some long-term commitment for both these players, or for Ferraro, who's, again, longest tenure Shark, currently on the roster, has been with the Sharks basically since the moment he got there. Here's basically when the Sharks kind of the dynasty crumbled, and he's been through this rebuild since the beginning, right? And with Ferraro, maybe you look to reward a guy who has been here, has played a lot of tough minutes on some very horrible Sharks teams, and figure he will probably fit in the future. He'll probably fit in more as your kind of, again, 4th, 5th type of defenseman. For Timothy Liljegren, the projected contract, he's projected to sign a 3-year deal at just a hair under $5. We'll just say $5 million at 26% likelihood, or a 4-year deal at $4.8 million at 24%. So Liljegren kind of projected to sign a shorter term deal, but probably for a little bit more AAV. And I do think you need to make a decision on one of them. I would try to sign one, and you're probably thinking, well, just go out and sign, right? Everybody's going to be gone other than Orlov, Mukmadulin, and Dickinson for next year, right? So just go sign on some free agents. Well, looking at the free agency class from next year, you're in a lot of this kind of same situation of just guys who are past their prime or just not good, or you're going to be, again, signing guys to massive contracts for a long term. I know starting next year, right, the highest term you can sign for a player will be 6 years as a free agent, and as as one of your own guys, 7 years. But just some of the names in next year's defenseman UFA class: John Carlson, who's 35, Jake Wallman, who'll be 29. You have Cam Fowler, Darren Radish, Matthias Ekholm was 35, Mike Matheson, Ryan McDougall, like Rasmus Anderson, Brent Burns, Brett Kulak, Nick Jensen, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, Connor Murphy, Tony D'Angelo, who's just going to continually get signed to one-year deals, apparently. Andrew P. It's not like there isn't even like going into this year, like at least there was more like kind of sexier names, and granted, Ekblad stayed home in Florida, and most of the top guys kind of stayed home. But there's not like Wallman's probably maybe the best guy in next year's free agency class. Like this feels like like if the Sharks do really want to try to upgrade long term, it feels like it's going to have to come via a trade route. But in that case, right, you're still going to have to try to fill out a roster for next year. And I do think keeping one of Liljegren or Ferraro makes a lot of sense. The problem is, which one do you keep? And I am more in the boat of, I think I would rather try to keep Liljegren. Ferraro, I believe, is going to get you a better return via trade, because I think his skill set is more valued around the NHL of, right, playing PK, shot blocking, all that stuff that Ferraro does. I think that skill set is more valued compared to what Liljegren is. And I think he would fetch you a better return. I'm not saying it's going to be a great return, but I think probably somewhere around a second round pick, late second, early third round pick, I think is a fair return for Mario Ferraro. And in the case of Liljegren, and I don't think he has the same miles on him that Ferraro does, right? Ferraro has played a lot of awful hockey and a lot of minutes in his time in San Jose. And while the injuries have usually been stuff from blocking shots, et cetera, he's not going to stop blocking shots and put himself in way of getting hurt. And I worry about signing Mario Ferraro to a long-term contract. I also, if the money's close enough, right, and Liljegren might be getting a little bit more higher AAV than Ferraro, but the Sharks really don't have to worry about the actual AAV, because they're going to have a bajillion dollars again next offseason. I think as of right now, they're scheduled to have $62 million in cap space. Granted, the roster's got 9 players on it, so they're going to have to re-sign a bunch of players or sign a bunch of players, et cetera. But still, like the cap money, like the money doesn't really matter as much. And I think signing a guy like Liljegren to a 3-year, $5 million deal, which kind of feels in line with some of the other contracts we've seen this offseason. I think that one I would rather just do that for 3 years and kind of use Liljegren as a bridge or a stopgap while you go out and try to upgrade the defense and other means via the draft, via trade, et cetera. I think I would rather do that and just go with more of a short-term deal, even if I have to overpay Liljegren for the 3 years, just to get him to sign maybe a shorter deal. I would rather do that than I would with Ferraro, who, again, I think Ferraro, yes, we saw more offensive production or jump from him this year, and again, maybe felt a little bit unlucky at times. But I'm not going to take a 1-year bump in potential offensive production from Ferraro compared to what we've seen the last 5 years from him. And I think we have enough sample size from Ferraro, and I would rather utilize that money elsewhere. And like I said, I worry about Ferraro as he continues to age a little bit here, and with those injuries maybe starting to mount up a little bit here. So what I would do if I was Mike Grier, clearly I'm not Mike Grier, keep both heading into training camp, right? See where you're at with Dickinson. If you feel like Dickinson is going to be a guy who sticks around for the season, I'm working on trying to move Ferraro out as soon as possible. And maybe it's one of those things like where you get to kind of Thanksgiving Dickinson's been playing well. He hangs around, like he's past his 9 games, right? He hangs around. And then you just decide we're going to keep Dickinson this year. Like we're going to go, we're not winning anything. We might as well get our lumps out with Dickinson now. Let's move Ferraro around that thing. Kind of the Blackwood timeline, right? Let's get to the beginning of the season. If Dickinson sticks, Mario Ferraro will trade you, kind of early part of the season, and then Liljegren sticks around. And then if Dickinson doesn't stick, right, you just keep Ferraro until the trade deadline or until somebody makes an offer that you feel like meets your price for him. And then Liljegren, kind of see how it goes this season. If Liljegren has a similar season to last year, then I think you start having the contract negotiations next offseason and, look to sign him to, like I said, about that 3-year max is what I'd want to sign for Liljegren. Gives you enough time, I think, to try to go out and find some other long-term defensive pieces that you can kind of build around with San Jose. So that's what I would do. Again, what do I know? So we'll be back though later this week. Like I said, we'll probably talk some more prospect stuff. We have an interview coming up as well. So make sure you guys follow along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Until later this week. Bye, friends.